So James thinks that just because I'm gone, he can do an episode without me. I feel for you guys. I really do. I'm very sorry you had to endure all of that. The fact that James is throwing out a bunch of random opinions without the ability to be checked by the truth, that is what I provide. And furthermore, not actually covering everything that's relevant to the people of Texas, our fine people of Texas. So James, you're going to record an episode without me, right? Which right there, that's insurrection, in my opinion. Okay, that's mutiny. And two, you're going to not even cover everything that's relevant to our fine state. This is why the people need me, and I will be filing a petition effective immediately to have James permanently banned from the show. That being said, hey, howdy, and welcome all to the Big and Bright Podcast. My name is Nick, and no one else is here because, of course, as James stated, I am not in the great state of Texas. I'm actually recording from my hotel room in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, right? So I went from the Republic to the Commonwealth. I'm here in Boston doing some work. James said it was a mission trip. It is a mission. We're going to be helping out some of the churches up here with a local Easter program that they're putting together. We partner with them, and we're here to get some work done. But I do have a couple of minutes to kind of set aside to come to you all and correct the issue that was Mr. James going on. And man, I do feel for you, friends. A couple of things that I do want to talk about that James did cover. One, the drones. James talked about the drones and sort of briefly let that go, that drones are going to be going to Frisco and the Little Elm area, delivering things from Walgreens to your house. He didn't stop and mention the fact that is absolutely terrifying. And when I'm dictator of Texas, all drone deliveries will be banned. If you're not being delivered something by a human being, you're just not going to get it. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Well, Nick, it's more efficient, and we don't need to employ people. Here's the deal: people are worth their employ. Also, people can account for things that drones can't account for. I know that drones have recordings and things, but what happens if you need an urgent package and it gets shut down? And three, I don't want drones delivering something because I want somebody else to have handled my package. And I know that's kind of weird, right? I want someone else to have handled my package. But like human beings, you're not going to deliver me something dangerous if a human being's going to be handling. So I want to make sure that I'm not subject to these crazy drone things coming into my house, and first of all, knowing where I live, being able to plot those coordinates and deliver it to whomever. Right now, I know that my data is already on there. I just don't trust him, friends. I don't like it, and I know that James will be like, well, he'll have all these different counterpoints. They're all garbage. It's not true. None of it's true. The fact is, you should not trust drones. You should not allow drones to come to your house. If you do see one, I'm not going to say that you should shoot it out of the sky. I'm not going to officially make that recommendation. I'm just going to say that if you so happen to do that, right, I might or might not be in support of you. What else did he talk about? Oh, he talked about the Don't Say Gay bill, right? So, and I can't even, it's not the Don't Say Gay bill. It's the parental protection bill, I believe it is, in Florida, and how we want to make a comparable bill here in Texas, which I'm 100% for, 100% on board with that. The use of the term "Don't Say Gay" is actually something that came from the left side of the aisle. It's something that's being pushed by those people because they want you to believe that that's what this bill is about. And if you can just change the name of the bill, then sure, the people will believe it because that's what the media is going to cover, right? It's an excellent use of semantic weaponry, as I call it, right? You just put it out there that this is what's in the bill. By calling it that, it also rhymes, it's catchy, it's easy to stick in the mind, and boom, you've got yourself a political winner. And I feel like the left, I'm not going to say they won because the bill passed in Florida, but I feel like the left did what they set out to do with this, which is to mark it as an anti-LGBT bill, which it isn't. It's very clearly not. If you're in the bill, in fact, when people are read the text of the bill, 53% of Democrats actually agree with the content of the bill. But the fact is, you got to get Ron DeSantis because Ron DeSantis is a front runner for the 2024 nomination. And let me be very clear: if Ron DeSantis wins the nomination, he will wipe the floor with Joe Biden, right? Barring any an insane amount of funny business, Ron DeSantis will wipe the floor with Joe Biden. So They got to get at him, and the way they're going to do that is by twisting the language in this bill. But let's talk about Texas. So Texas is going to make a comparative bill here in the state. I think that's great. I think that's awesome. Basically, what that bill says is that you can't talk about, right, at least you can't discuss or you can't teach, right? So again, discussion is not really what appears in the language of the bill. The language of the bill specifically talks about teaching. You cannot teach about alternative sexual identities, and for the record, I don't think you should be teaching about sexual identity at all in the ages that this bill is talking about, right? Which is kindergarten to third grade. You're talking about 7-year-olds at the high end. I don't think you should be talking about sex with 7-year-olds, right? I personally don't think you should be talking about sex in school at all, right? This whole idea of sex education, I don't think that that's something that you should even be touching on, apart from understanding the human body and from a biological perspective, right? So biology textbooks can cover how human beings reproduce and procreate, or how mammalian species in general reproduce and procreate. But I don't want sex education in schools at all. So this bill to me doesn't even go far enough. But I certainly don't want to be talking about alternative sexual lifestyles to my 7-year-old. Right? That's absurd. That's not absurd. It's obscene. It's legitimately obscene. I know I use that word a lot, but this is the definition of its obscenity to me, is talking about sex and sexuality to my 7-year-olds. And a bill that says you can't do that, I'm all for it. Making a comparable bill here in the state of Texas, even pushing it a little farther, all for it. And obviously the left is upset about this, right? Now there's going to be a Texas Don't Say Gay bill. Sure, if you want to call it that, that's what it'll be. I'm 100% for this bill. Obviously, there's retaliation from that side, but I want to talk about the Republican side of things. Now, obviously, the Republican side of things, people on the right, they're for this legislation, right? They're for this parental protections bill in the state of Texas. But I'm so tired, right? And because this is one thing I want to say is this is coming out of the Abbott administration, right? It's Dan Patrick that's proposing it, but this is coming out of the Abbott administration. And I am so tired of you people talking about Greg Abbott not being Ron DeSantis. And I'm going to take this opportunity because James isn't here to sit here and go, well, Nick, he's not a real Republican. He's not here to poo-poo Greg Abbott. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of all these people that are talking about Greg Abbott. They don't want to vote for Greg Abbott because he's not a real conservative or whatever, right? I'm going to tell you what my friends told me, right? So it's, when I'm talking about, I was asking somebody, a friend of mine, which college I should root for, right? Because I didn't go to a D1 college, right? And so I had this one college that I was like, maybe I should root for these guys, right? Because they're a Texas team, and maybe I should root for these guys. And one of my friends who attended one of these schools leaned in and said, Nick, do you like winning? Do you like championships? Then you should root for my school. Now I'm going to let you decide what school that particular person was talking about, but the fact is, that's how I feel about Greg Abbott. Do you like winning? Greg Abbott wins. Greg Abbott gets things done. He gets initiatives passed. He makes things work. Now, is everything that he do is going to be 100% staunchly conservative? No. Right? Why? Because he's not Ron DeSantis. Why is he not Ron DeSantis? Because Texas isn't Florida. It has a massive demographic difference. It has a more massive population. It has a gigantic population. The state of Texas does. Far bigger than the state of Florida, right? You also have different demographic shifts as far as how much money people make. What's the aggregate household income in the state of Texas is lower than the state of Florida, right? What is the rate of immigration? That's another thing that you have to consider. We're going to talk about that in a second, but that's another thing you have to consider. It's far higher here in the state of Texas than it is in Florida. In fact, I'm fairly certain it's the highest of any state in the United States, including California. The reality is we have to take things into consideration here in Texas that we don't in Florida, and Greg Abbott does a great job of that. Now, I understand most of you guys are going to be voting for Greg Abbott in the primaries. Or rather, in the general election. So I'm not concerned that Greg Abbott is going to be beaten by Beto O'Rourke in this particular election. I'm really not, right? I think that right now the world is so polarized and we are so mobilized against the left that I don't think Beto O'Rourke has a snowball's chance in El Paso of winning this election. So I'm not concerned now. But this attitude of going after the current governor for these small, minute things that are happening, or because your governor didn't win the primary, I'm going to stay home. That's how the left gets in. That's how people lose elections, is from apathy towards an election because your particular individual, your particular candidate didn't win the primary. Greg Abbott is a great governor. Greg Abbott is doing a lot of good things. Now, Greg Abbott I've got my complaints about Greg Abbott. I'm going to go ahead and say I didn't vote for Greg Abbott in the primary, right? I would have rather somebody else. That's okay, but I'm not going to sit here and poo-poo my governor because, oh, he didn't do this thing that I liked. This particular marginal tax rate wasn't good. No, my gosh, he hasn't quite, he hasn't quite let up the state of emergency for COVID. He hasn't done anything with it, but it's still there, and I don't like that. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of this. Greg Abbott's a great governor. He's got my full support, and as long as I am on this show, you will never see me bashing. You will never see me openly bashing Greg Abbott unless something egregious happens. I'm not saying it couldn't, but that's what it's going to take, right? So yes, all in favor of this legislation, all in favor of the administration passing it. All right, forward unto dawn, friends. Let's do this. Let's get it done. Let's get it passed. If we're following Florida, so be it. I don't care. It's getting passed in my state, and I'm happy about that. Now, let's talk about something else that's happening on the national stage. Right now, James talked about, this is crazy. He said this in this episode. He said, I'm going to go national. And I go, oh, okay, I know what he's going to talk about. And then he talked about Ketanji Brown Jackson. Really? You don't talk about that? Pfft. We know that Ketanji Brown Jackson is going to get confirmed. We know, right? And he talked about, oh, she's an originalist. Whatever, right? James, you can make all these sort of minutia arguments all you want. You're going to convince me that Ketanji Brown Jackson is an originalist. I'm not going to say James doesn't know what he's talking about. The dude knows his law for sure, but get out of here with that. Anyway, let's talk about what I thought James was going to be discussing, which is Title 42, or rather the termination of Title 42. Now, what is Title 42? Fairly simple. Title 42 is a United States policy that says that's turning away people at the border that are infected with COVID. Right? They're turning away people. They're enforcing, making border enforcement, rationing up border enforcement because people were coming in through the southern border, particularly, that were infected with COVID. And as a national health measure, they were rationing up. Enforcement at the border. Okay. That is going to be turned off, right? That spigot is basically going to be turned off. Why? Right? Well, I believe it was the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, said, well, we're following the science. COVID isn't an issue anymore. COVID hasn't been an issue for a long time, right? And by the way, you're going to say COVID is an issue anymore on the border, and yet kids in New York are still being masked right now. You're still fighting to get kids out of masks. I still have to wear a mask when I'm walking around cities like Boston. But again, the border's fine because COVID is an issue. Are you kidding me? Get out of here with that nonsense. But let me tell you what this means for us, right? Currently, we just have a massive amount of migrants that are coming in. I think right now we've got almost over 7,000 migrants that are coming in daily, which is unbelievable, right? 7,000 migrants that are coming in daily to this country, right? Particularly through places like Texas. But we had this border enforcement, this increased border enforcement because of Title 42. And so, we were able to sort of mitigate that. That's now being turned off, right? So what are people saying now? Well, Border Patrol officials are saying that we are planning for as many as 18,000 arrivals daily. Not monthly, not weekly. 18,000 people crossing the border daily is what we're planning for. Why? Because we have a weak president. And President They has been sitting up there going, oh, I guess I'm not going to do anything about the border. People in Mexico recognize that. They've come over to this country specifically because Joe Biden is president and he's not going to export them, right? He's not going to deport them, rather. Excuse me, right? He's not going to deport them. 18,000 people a day. We're going to go ahead and do some math for you. That is 540,000 people a month. That is just shy of 6.5 million people per year. That is 2% of the United States population is crossing the border annually. 2%. You think that's not going to make a voting bloc difference? And you think the Democrats don't know that? 100% they know that. If you can get 2% of the population, elections have been decided by considerably less, friends. We got 2% of the population that are coming in that are not citizens of this country. We got 2% of the population that are going to be coming in, and we don't think that's an issue. This is absurd. This is the most absurd thing that I've ever heard when it comes to national policy. So what is Greg Abbott doing? Well, first things first. Greg Abbott is showing that our staff we're understaffed and we're underfunded at the border, right? Currently, in order for Greg Abbott to continue his Operation Lone Star program that he started back in March, I believe it was March 2021, he's going to need another $500 million to get us through the fiscal year into May 1st. And Democrats are going nuts about that. Oh, we're spending all this money, $500 million just to get us through the border, right? The project costs about $2 billion, right? About $2 billion funneled to the border, and they're saying, $2 billion for border. What happened to fiscally responsible Republicans? $2 billion is nothing. $2 billion is nothing when you're talking about the current debt that we've incurred, right? We spent during COVID, we sent in individual checks to people. We spent over $6 trillion. $6 trillion. That is thousands of times more than the $2 billion that we need to send to the budget. So don't come here talking to me about budget, right? The fact is, this is where our budget needs to go. We're supposed to protect and we're supposed to defend our borders. That's what the government is supposed to do. This is the other thing that we're getting from Greg Abbott. And specifically, this isn't something that Greg Abbott has announced. Now, he is going to make an announcement about the border today. We'll keep you updated as that happens. But there's been conversations going around, specifically conversations with a guy named Tom Homan, who is, I don't know if it's Homan or Homan, but he is the former director of ICE under Donald Trump, I believe it was, having conversations about declaring what's happening at the border an invasion. Now, Doug Ducey in Arizona is also having conversations about this, right, with various border enforcement about declaring it an invasion. And because we declare an invasion, what will that do? Well, that will spur the United States government to will allow basically Texans or Texas rather to employ things like the National Guard or the State Guard or the state troopers to the border in order to defend the border. Okay. Declaring an invasion. Why does that matter? Well, there's some constitutional stuff to this, right? So here's the thing. Are there stipulations placed for an invasion in the Constitution? Yes, there are. As a matter of fact, one rule that I have, no matter where I am, I never leave without my handy-dandy copy of the Constitution. So let's review, friends, shall we? Article 4, Section 4, the United States shall guarantee to every state, and that's important, guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government, which there's issues there that we could talk about, and shall protect each of them against invasion, and on application to the legislature or executive when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence. So they're saying, okay, the United States has a responsibility to protect against invasion. What I believe they're intending to do is say, if Greg Abbott can declare this an invasion, then we can appeal to the federal government for assistance because we're being invaded, right? And the Constitution guarantees us protection from invasion by the United States, meaning the federal government. When the federal government fails to respond, because they're going to look at this and go, that's not an invasion, not even going to worry about it. The Texas legislature and the Texas executive branch, meaning Greg Abbott, the governor, would feel more justified, I suppose, in mobilizing the National Guard and mobilizing the State Guard to the border. Do they have a case? It's a shame that I don't have Justice James here, but just by a cursory reading of Constitution, no, I don't think they do, right? Because let me tell you something that isn't in here. There is nothing in here that says that the states are responsible for the military or that the states are responsible for enforcing the borders, right? There isn't anything in there that says anything about that. And there's quite a bit that suggests, now there's nothing in there, again, that directly says that it's the federal government's responsibility, unless I've missed something. I don't think I have, but I might have. There's nothing in there that says that the federal government is responsible for enforcing borders specifically, but it does explicitly say that the federal government, aka the president, is responsible for mobilizing the army, right? And invasions are dealt with by the military. So The president is the commander-in-chief of the Army and the Navy of the United States of America, and of course the Air Force and all these other things. So the military of the United States overseen by the federal government, which would make border enforcement a federal issue. I don't think they have a point there. And then the other issue is this in fact an invasion? I mean, you're playing kind of fast and loose with the text if you want to call this an invasion. Is it a problem? Yeah, it's a massive problem. Should we do something about it? You bet you we should do something about it. Is this the solution? I don't think so. I don't think this is the way to go. If Abbott does this, if he does, I don't think he's going to. Let me just say that. I don't think he's going to. But if he does come out this afternoon or evening and say we're going to declare this an invasion and ask the Biden administration for assistance, then we'll see, man. That'll be a hoot, especially because he's up for election in November. Doing that could definitely, that's making a ton of waves right before an election, and we'll see if it goes for or against him in favor. I don't think that this is going to happen, friends. It's just not there, right? I don't think we have the cards on our table. Now, should we do something about this? 100% we should do something about this. And, I mean, to be honest with you, it would almost to me make more sense to simply send the State Guard and the National Guard to the border and tell Biden to do something about it. I mean, that to me would be, you'd be making the same stand. You'd get the same effect, right? You would be able to effectively mobilize the troops that you need to the border. And to me, it would be a way more bold move, right? Because then you'd basically just be appealing to the 10th Amendment. You'd be saying, listen, I'm a state. I have the responsibility to protect the sovereignty of my territory. I'm going to use what resources I have at my disposal. Go. And then look at the Biden administration and say, do something. What are you going to do, right? Now, what that would do is it would actually prompt the Biden administration to make a move against Abbott, and then Abbott comes out looking like the white mushroom in that case. He comes out looking like the one that's on the defensive because he's making a necessary move, and he's challenging. Is he challenging the federal government? Sure he is, but optically, I think that's the best way to go, right? Because in that way, you coming out if the Biden administration responds in some way by suing the state of Texas or even mobilizing troops to the state of Texas in order to effectively make some sort of statement there, you end up looking more like Zelensky than Putin at that point. So I think that's probably the better way to go, and I think Abbott will do something similar to that. I don't anticipate that this emergency it's kind of an emergency declaration, this invasion declaration, I don't think that's going to go anywhere. That being said, friends, that's what affects you in this wonderful state, the state in which I am not in. I've gone on a pilgrimage, and I'm bringing the good news of Texas to the fine people of the city of Boston. I will be back soon. James and I will be together again, and we will continue to bring you the news, continue to bring you the Texas perspective on national issues. We will continue to be that light in the darkness. We are the stars at night. We are big and bright, my friends. I'll see you next week.